So Bernie Sanders actually sent out a tweet. As you guys know, there's a war going on, full throttle war. I'm talking full out, between Liz Cheney, pretty much by herself, versus the rest of the Republican Party. Liz Cheney is outspokenly anti-Trump, super outspoken against Trump, and that has caused a huge rift. Pretty much nobody is on Liz Cheney's side, at least not publicly. She's supposedly going to likely be removed from Republican leadership because she's essentially become a thorn in their side in being pro-Trump. And so they've been, trading shots. Republican leadership wants her out. So Bernie Sanders sent out a tweet. He's an interesting person to weigh in on this, obviously. He says Representative Liz Cheney will likely be voted off the House Republican leadership. Her crime, acknowledging the reality that Trump lost the election. The Republican Party is no longer a conservative party. It is an anti-democratic cult pushing the big lie and conspiracy theories. So this comment is going to put Bernie Sanders in kind of a weird position. It actually puts any progressive in a weird position who's commenting on this conflict that currently exists inside the GOP between Liz Cheney and the pro-Trump Republicans. Because do you side with the pro-Trump Republicans in here and say that they should oust the Liz Cheneys of the world, who are war criminals, who also stole elections and always steal elections? Or are you going to side with the crazy Trumpers who are even crazier and more insane? They're fake populist, but in reality, they're conservative as well. But they're more dangerous because they try to, fake the populism in the public, and they're QAnoners and lunatics. Or do you just not weigh in at all? Where do you come in? It's a weird position to be in because it's like, fuck, both sides are so trash, right? I mean, the Iraq War, minimum 200,000 innocent civilians, innocent Iraqis killed, trillions of dollars spent. The war was outright illegal. The United Nations did not approve of this invasion at all. And, the people who get to determine whether or not, countries are in violation of international laws, the Security Council of the UN. So the war was completely illegal. The inspection of the chemical weapons was total. Actually, the results just came out and said there was nothing there. It was already known, but Bush went in anyways. Massive crime. Liz Cheney's father was really the one spearheading all that stuff. So it's crazy, right? Massive tax cuts, horrible for the economy. Also a lot of either overt or covert racism and stuff like that. Stealing elections via voter suppression, or a la 2000 Gore v. Bush, So where do you come in on this? It's a very difficult one, right? So a lot of people went after him, although one thing I'll mention is that there were some people defending him who were his fans. But here's some of the comments in here. This one says, haha, what would possess you to defend Liz Cheney? So the question is this tweet really defending Liz Cheney for who she is? Or is it being extremely specific in basically saying, oh, the Republican Party is going to vote her off of Republican leadership because she acknowledged that Donald Trump lost the election? That's not really defending Liz Cheney in almost any way, shape, or form. It's more pointing out, look at the Republican Party and what it's doing. This is crazy. So I don't agree with that. And, you can see the Praxis thing. So obviously they're communist. There's a lot of those, for far leftists essentially doing this stuff. So it says, have some self-respect for the love of God. And it's one that says, Representative Liz Cheney calls Bernie Sanders a commie with daddy issues. So again, just this kind of thing, I don't know. It could go either way. You could call him a cuck, or you could say that he's that much of a selfless person. He's giving his analysis without care for, whatever a comment like that is. And I would rather go with the latter because, again, it's not like he's praising Liz Cheney. He's just pointing out how insane the Republican Party has become. Someone says, please don't be supporting Liz Cheney in any way, shape, or form. what a crazy time when you have to jump in to defend, and rightly so, a warmonger. So this is an Andrew Yang supporter, but I would definitely not characterize this as defending Liz Cheney. I don't think that's what this is. You really speaking up for warmonger Liz Cheney now? Jesus fucking Christ. So again, this is a tough issue here when it comes to this situation. I mean, I would say both parts of the party are warmongers, but it is something that I think is noteworthy and worth pointing out. Like, damn, it's gotten to the point where the majority of the party is going to kick Liz Cheney out because she's saying that Donald Trump did not win the election. I don't know how you don't comment that. Honestly, it's a pretty big deal. You know, and this one says, "Dear social media manager, no one that follows Bernie Sanders gives a goddamn about anything bad happening to Liz Cheney of all people." But again, this is more of like a sort of macro trend, and so it really doesn't have anything. Honestly, this situation really has nothing to do with Liz Cheney. Like, when you think of this situation, I wouldn't even think about Liz Cheney because it's misleading. This really has nothing to do with Liz Cheney. This really has to do with the Republican Party in a more macro sense. Really, Liz Cheney is essentially just kind of the cog in this example as to look at what the Republican Party has turned to. That's sort of the primary point. Liz Cheney is, being kicked out because she said, yeah, Trump lost the election. Really has nothing to do with Liz Cheney or who she is or any of that. And even the macro sense of like, oh, they're warmongers and stuff like that, that's true, and that's kind of where it becomes difficult because you have those warmongers who also cheat elections, but then you have the other ones who are also warmongers who cheat elections. So what do you do? But I feel like it's hard not to point out, like, damn, the party is literally anti-democracy. Like, I think that's a pretty big deal, for sure. And so, since says her crimes run a lot deeper than that. Burn, not an ally, not a person to defend. I don't see why you feel the need to defend Liz Cheney, Bernie. Again, this is not really defending Liz Cheney, and not only that, it really has nothing to do with Liz Cheney. This has to do with what the Republican Party has become. So, I definitely think that people are overreacting here. Definitely says you don't have to do this, Bernie. You don't have to do it. And so, people are going to respond with this. I think this was inevitable, obviously, especially because the more, the sort of smaller voice, smaller numbers of further left people are going to respond with more volume. And so those are the responses that you're going to see. But it is a sort of conundrum here in what side do you come on, because they're both shit. You ideally both of them lose, right? But in this scenario, somebody has to win, or you have to sort of have this comment. So it is insane that the Republican Party is going to kick Liz Cheney out of his leadership because she says Trump lost. That's a pretty huge deal. It's the party of QAnon now. And so what's more dangerous, the QAnon warmongers and all the, Trump basically, the faux populist, or is it the Liz Cheneys of the world, And I think you could make a serious argument for why the faux populists are more dangerous because they're better at winning elections and better at getting to people's hearts and winning them over. So I think you could actually make an argument for why they're more dangerous. But yeah, that's what's going on here. Bernie Sanders getting some backlash from his supporters.